9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Are you ready?
White Sox, go, go, White Sox. Let's go, 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 White.
Welcome, sports fans, to the very special edition of the Monsters of the Madhouse podcast with your very host, Maggie Ballentine, myself, and my very special guest, my grandfather, and Region sports legend, Bob Cantrell. I'm going to welcome him to the stream now. Grandpa, you're on. Welcome to
Hi,
the
Maggie.
show.
How are you
today?
I'm doing great. You?
I'm doing
it's
well.
my pleasure to be associated with you.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine, Grandpa. Thank you for everything that you have done for my sports career and all the games and all the miles that you have traveled to be at.
Well, we knew from the age 6 or 7 you were going to be a superstar. We knew that. We could tell you were a special one.
Speaking of superstars, you had a very storied career yourself, from Northwest Indiana to the University of Michigan and even professional baseball, as well as seeing your career as an athletic director and now as a fan of your grandchildren. Let's start at the beginning of your story. What sports did you play growing up?
Well, I played a lot of baseball, Elks and Kiwanis, Little League. We started the first East Chicago Little League in 1952. We built a field and we played, and I played for the East Chicago Police Stars way back in 52, and we won the championship the first year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that's before they had all the tournaments and all the glory and everything else, travel ball and all that. But we had fun. And then I played Elks and Kiwanis, which was sponsored there from the time you're 8 years old till the time you're about 15. And then American Legion ball in East Chicago, post 78 and post 369. And then, of course, on to high school. And Washington High School, we won conference 3 out of 4 years, and I was all conference all 4 years in baseball.
Oh, wow. That was what I was just about to ask was, did you play all 4 years? I know.
I played all 4 years. As a matter of fact, I started every game I ever played in high school, and also, well, not in basketball, though. Basketball, I had to earn myself up the chain because in 1957, our coach decided to build us a gym. We had not won much because we had to go to a High Civic Center, and they had great teams in those days, and we couldn't win a sectional for like 15 years. And then all of a sudden they built our gym, and we won 18 sectionals in a row after that, including regionals and including semi-states and one state championship in 1960.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that a different experience having to essentially travel for all your home games? I know that's something that was always really special, was not having to sit
Indiana,
on the bus.
We played some Illinois teams. We played Dunbar and played a couple teams and that were good in Illinois, but we stayed basically in Lake County. Although when you go to the tournaments, in our tournament in 1960, we played the first game. We beat Hammond Tech, and then we beat East Chicago Roosevelt, and then we beat Griffith, and then we beat Highland. Sectional champs, we had to win 4 games. Then in the regional, we played Valparaiso and beat them, and then we beat Gary Roosevelt, who was rated number 2 in the state, and we were rated 3. And then in the semi-state, we beat LaPorte, and then we beat Crawfordsville. And then in the finals, in those days, too, you had to play 2 games on a Saturday, not 1 game, but 2.
Wow.
Which was tough in basketball or any
Yeah, for
sport.
sure.
And then in the state final, we beat Fort Wayne Central 62-61 in the afternoon. And then we had to play the best team in the state, who probably, if they had beat us, would have been the best team ever.
Oh, wow.
Because they had All-American Ron Bonham, they had 2 All-Staters, then a guy named Dampier, and then they had a guy that went to college and made All-American, again, a guy 6'10" named Davis, and they had 2 football guards that played, which was very good. We beat them. They were 18-point favorites in the final game, and we beat them 75-59. But we were absolutely defensive type team. We had a defensive coach they brought in by the name of Sam Esposito, who was he was on the White Sox. He played for the White Sox, and then he would leave us at a tournament time to go to spring training. But he taught us how to play defense, and he did a great job. And we won state. And then that's the only time our coach had ever won state. That's how tough it was. And he had coached from 47 into like 1980.
Well, to be fair, at that time, there was only one state champion.
One state champ, and it was one class. And really, to win, you had to win 10 games. And
that's crazy.
Every one of the 10 were tough. The Gary schools, Gary Roosevelt, Gary Frable. I lost you. Gary Tolliston. You still hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Gary Tolliston, and then you had Valparaiso, and Michigan City had great teams too. And really to get out of in our regional that year in 1960, we had Valpo rated in the top 10, Michigan City in the top 10, Gary Roosevelt rated second, and we were rated third. That was like playing their own old state tournament. But we were well coached, and we wanted to win bad. And there hadn't been there was one Lake County state champ starting from 1930. There was only one before us. Hammond Tech got lucky in 1940 and won, and then we won it in 60. But later on, a couple other, Gary Roosevelt won it in 68, and then you had Michigan City win it in 66. But it was very difficult to get past Lafayette and all, those Southern teams in all sports give you pain.
I mean, it sounds like even the region was incredibly competitive at that point too.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you could have Highland had a great team that year, and they were 26-1, although they didn't play us during the season. But we beat them in the sectional final. But they were tough, real tough. And matter of fact, all those old coaches, there were some great name coaches. Hammond High had Bob King, and Hammond Tech had George Barriolas, and then you had Gary Roosevelt had a great old-time coach. Bo Mallard, he was their coach. He had coached for 30, 40 years, and they all knew tricks. And I remember one time I went to Gary to talk to him over a matter. My coach sent you there, and he had 2 guys sitting from down south sitting there, and he didn't know I was walking in, and I heard him say, well, get these guys out of here. We don't want them to see our recruits. So we knew then that they were recruiting. In all schools, they talk about that quite a bit now in high school, and Andrean takes a lot of hits on that, but they're all the same. All those schools go out and try to get good players. You can't blame them.
Yeah, everyone's very competitive, and
in Chicago,
I don't think anybody does it maliciously by any means, but I think athletes are being so competitive and wanting to find better coaching or a better place to play, and I think a lot of people are moving now, especially with the culture in college athletics, where the transfer
I'm kind of shocked
so prevalent
with this new rule where you can transfer schools almost at will, and you can ask to go somewhere else. And in our day, no one left the school and no one played anywhere else because you're going to be ineligible for a year, and you don't want to throw away a year. Now, like Purdue had a guy playing for him from Crown Point, Skip.
Mm-hmm.
Spike. He played for Purdue, and then all of a sudden he's playing for Michigan.
Yeah, it was the other way around. He started at Michigan and then transferred to Purdue for his grad year. Yeah.
Purdue, yeah.
So lots of people are moving around.
Oh, it's crazy. But in our high school year, we went to the state finals in 1960, and we were not the favorite. They didn't think we could win it because in 59, we went to the semi-state and got beat in the final game. We got upset by Lafayette Jeff. and we were rated number 1 in the state that year.
Yeah.
We had beat the Addicts, and the Addicts in our gym, we beat them like 81-80, one point, and then they went on to win the state laughing. But we got upset by Lafayette Jeff, 56-52, and that was quite a shock to all our fans. And we got back to the school, and they had painted the school green, Fire Barato. That was shocking.
Oh my gosh.
When we drove in there, somebody had got to the school, and on the front of the school, they wrote in green paint, Fire Barato, our coach. And he was popular guy, and his record was unbelievable. And I think he won 18 sectionals in a row. And
they were coming for his neck because he lost one game. Wow.
He lost. Well, we were number 1 in state, and we were favored to win, and we had never won state in 59. And we had a couple guys, 3 or 4 guys. Pete Oxel played, and he went on to North Carolina State, and Jimenez played, and he went on to Creighton. And we had a lot of guys that played college. And my senior year, we had 3 All-Staters, first time ever in the state of Indiana. Diviak was number 4. Ron Diviak, who was one of our stars. And Phil Dawkins was 7. Diviak went to Michigan State. Dawkins went to Purdue. And I was number 11 on the team. They picked 12. And I went to Michigan. And we had 3 teams. And we went 28-2. We got beat twice during the season. Gary Roosevelt beat us at home, and we got beat by Tolliston in Gary. Muncie was 29-0 going into the state championship game, rated number 1. They were the best team in the country, not the state. Yeah, they rated the best team, and they had Ron Bonham, who became a All-American college player at Cincinnati, and won 2 back-to-back NCAA championships, and he was their star.
Wow!
He was player of the year, and then. I decided after high school, we went to the banquet, and the speaker was the IU coach, Branch McCracken. And he ends up, my dad and our coach talked to him about me going to Indiana. And McCracken said, he's not Big Ten material. He's never going to play Big Ten. Let him go to a smaller school like Wabash, and he can be a star there. So I got upset with that. And then when I got a call from one of our local bankers, Ben McNowski, who said he was a Michigan alumni. And he says, we got a new coach at Michigan this year. I said, who? He said he couldn't remember the guy's name. It was Dave Strack.
No kidding.
He had come from Utah. And he said, you want to go to Michigan? I said, I'd love to go to Michigan. He said, come to my bank there in East Chicago. He gave me $30 and get on the train in Gary. And I went to Ann Arbor and signed with him right on the spot. I love Ann Arbor. I love Michigan.
Wow.
Tradition there. The first time I walked in the football stadium, there was 100,000 people there, and it was built on the lower level, the ground. So when you walked in the stadium, you didn't know there was 100,000 people.
Yeah, the big house.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, it was fantastic, and I had a lot of fun, and I got an education, and I got hooked up. I picked Michigan, went there because in the Big Ten they were like 1-16 that year. So I figure I'm going to play if I go to Michigan because they don't have anybody.
Impact.
So they had the next year, a freshman year, you couldn't play as a freshman. So we end up having to sit out and have our own team. But we had a varsity freshman game, and we beat the varsity in the varsity freshman game, and that was shocking. Well, it wasn't shocking to me, but there was only 2 players on that team that survived us and went on to varsity. Me and my roommate, Doug Herner. He was from Lansing Sexton. He was state champ, all state Michigan dream team. They got a dream team in Michigan. He was on the dream team.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we played together. And then my sophomore year, we got better, but we finished about 6th in the Big Ten. My junior year, we finished 3rd behind Illinois. And then my senior year, we end up getting Cassie Russell All-American and Bill Bunton All-American. Cassie Russell out of Chicago Carver was the player of the year in Michigan, and he was an NBA star for 8 years after that.
Yeah, I always think I played with really cool, impressive people until I talked to you, Grandpa. I think you have so many stories of playing with really awesome teammates who, even, across sports, Who do
Well,
you think was one of your favorite people to play with?
Well, I played on Michigan's baseball team, and we won the College World Series, and we won the Big Ten. Our catcher was a guy by the name of Bill Freehand. I
Yeah.
was a utility infielder as a sophomore and junior, but he played 1 year. He led the Big Ten in hitting and signing and went right to the Detroit Tigers. He was a
Wow.
catcher, 6'5", Bill Freehand. And then later on, we had 5 major leaguers on that team at Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, to
5.
win the College World Series, you got to be stacked like that, you know?
We had 5. He was the best, but then we had a guy by the name of Dave Campbell, who was a first baseman. He ended up playing major leagues, and then we had a guy named Sizemore who ended up with the Dodgers, and then we had a guy with the White Sox named John Joyce. He was a pitcher for the White Sox. We had 5 major leaguers that were players, and it was fun just sitting there watching the games. I got the pitch hit once in a while, and I got the pitch run, but then when basketball came, basketball is a very, just like any sport there, but it's very demanding. We had spring practice, we had fall practice, we had the winter league, and we had to show up for special weekends. And I mean, it was a full-time job. Being an athlete in college Division I is a full-time job.
Absolutely.
They don't cut you any slack. And if you don't, I had on my team, I had 2 Illinois All-Staters, and we had Mr. Basketball out of Ohio sitting the bench. Couldn't play. Matter of fact, John Clausen, who came out of Illinois, I think he's out of Quincy, was All-State. He ended up making the Olympic team and played in the U.S. Olympic team, and he sat on the bench when I played.
Wow.
And then I ended up getting lucky. I got to go to Ohio and play against John Havlicek and Jerry Lucas. Played in their big gym, and it was exciting because they had 15,000 at every game.
Yeah, that had to be an awesome atmosphere.
Oh yeah, it was a great time, and got to know people. Then I also got Minnesota had 2 all pro. One was Archie Clark, and the other was what was his name? I can't. But I played against, and then Oregon, we played out there against Mel Counts, who was a 7-foot guy at the time that ended up with the Celtics. And after I finished Michigan, I went back to coaching. I decided I'd do a little coaching at my school, my hometown, and I wanted to go somewhere where I could learn. So I went back to East Chicago, and I was named the freshman coach. Our head coach, John Barato, then let me be freshman coach. And the team I ended up coaching that year was a team that had Pete Turgevich, UCLA, Junior Bridgman, Louisville, Stoddard from North Carolina State, Adele at Murray State, and a guy named Thing. They were called the greatest team ever because they won 30-0 through and won the state championship in 1971. And 3 of the guys played in the NCAA finals and won the NCAA double championship. Turgevich won it with UCLA, Bridgman won it with Louisville, and Stoddard won it with North Carolina State, all on my freshman team. I coached. I was undefeated, and no one even wanted to play us. We were that good. And then
naturally,
the Barato retired. I begged him not to retire. We went to Turgevich's house, and we actually recruited Turgevich. He had already signed with Bishop Noel. Turgevich. He was at a Holy Trinity in East Chicago. And we went over his house, and we sat there, and Barato said, "We're not leaving until he agrees to go to East Chicago, Washington." We sat there 11 hours. 11 hours we sat at the house, and the mother said, "No, I don't want him playing with, I want him to go to Noel where he get a good education and go there, and they'll treat him right and everything else." Well, we got him, but it took a lot of work. And then he became an All-Stater, and he went to UCLA. And I happened to be in the office when Johnny Wooden called him, and he said, I need to talk to Pete Turgevich. So I found Pete and brought him in, and he's saying to Pete Turgevich, "I'm not going to come recruit you. I'm not going to see you. I'm offering you a scholarship. If you want it, tell me now, or we can move on."
Yeah.
Turgevich looked at me, put the phone against chest. "What should I do?" I said, "Tell him hell yes." Who wouldn't go to UCLA? Who wouldn't want to be on?
Fair enough.
On it? And they won the NCAA. Turgevich was on too, and he was captain of their team in 19 19, I want to say 75. Yeah.
Okay.
They won the NCAA, and that was, I think, Gordon's last championship. Him and Bill Walton were
Okay.
good buddies. But, you know, as far as high schools and that, I couldn't have picked a better high school to go to get a background and learn how to play sports. And just something that every game in high school, we had 6,000 fans. Everybody came up and they would fight for sectional tickets. And although I enjoyed going to Andreans games now, and even the Crown Point when you won state championship in softball, that was a great. I loved it because
we had an awesome atmosphere across.
You guys had
all of the state
girls with you, and they worked hard, and they really put on a show, and they were all dedicated to the game and everything else. And I know how hard it is to win a state championship. I mean, it's very difficult.
Obviously.
Because you got teams you've never played before. Yes. You go there and you don't know how good they are. And then, you had a state championship, and then he was on a state championship, Robbie Ballentine, who was at Andre, and he was on a state championship in baseball, football, and basketball. And then he became
Robbie Ballentine being my brother,
your brother,
your grandson.
And my grandson. And he got the highest award for football and sports and academics in Indiana that year. And I got the same award in 1960. Yeah. I got the Tressler Award, which was the top athlete student in the state of Indiana in 1960. So, you know, and I always say, I'd rather be lucky and be in the right spot than be real good, because you got to have both. You got to be a good athlete, but you also have to have the academics, and you also have to have, you see so many guys now that don't put the work in school, and they're great players, but they're transferring to 2-3 different schools every year. It's just, I don't like that rule, but you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely part of, we see like a lot of these NIL deals are causing athletes to move, and even just finding better opportunities. I mean, I know it's really awesome opportunities for people who just want to come home. They think that a faraway school is for them, and then that ends up not being the truth. And I've even seen some of my friends do it, and that's better for them and their mental health. And you know, sometimes you have to do what's best for you, regardless of what maybe is supposed to be right.
Well, when I went to see you play, all of a sudden the catcher's from California, the other the star is over out east, and I'm saying, how do they find these girls? How do they find talent? And because going to Denison, you got to be smart.
Yes,
Denison's like the Harvard of the Midwest or whatever, but they're just good, and really they were very interesting to go see the games and go see the school and talk to the coaches, and they got great fans, and just like DePaul too. DePaul and Greencastle.
I'm a little less inclined to agree with that, but
that's your competition. But your brother went there, and he's made a great name for himself already as a freshman.
Absolutely,
he was freshman of the year, and now he's got a friend of his named Tori Allen that's going to go there too, right?
Oh yes, Tori Allen is no stranger of the podcast. She has been introduced previously. Andrean's
star girls basketball player, and she's going to be at DePaul. It'll be interesting. I don't think I'll miss very many games, Maggie.
No, I'm happy to also be in Indy next year and get to see some games.
Well, you'll be right there, but I'll be there for football season, then I'll be there for basketball season. And now,
looking forward to watching some games with you, Grandpa.
And if we can get Scotty to play baseball, then we'll have it made. We'll have 3
all
seasons
year.
In a row. But it's kind of amazing how much fun athletics gives you in life. It kind of sets the tone for the challenges, and it sets the tone for improving your ability to get things done. And Maggie, you're going to start law school in August, right?
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. The change from being a student athlete will be very different for me. I'm definitely going to have to find ways to.
Well, the competition in law school will be good, because you'll be competing against some of the smarter people around, and they'll all be wanting to be 1, 2, or 3 graduate. And I don't think too many going to beat you out. I think it
Thank
would
you,
be
Grandpa.
hard to beat. You know, we, my wife and I, Barbara, we
Yes.
had 4 children, and the first one was Judge Julie Cantrell Ballentine, and she went to law school, and that was our first one there, and we were so excited to see her go to law school and what she was going to do. And then she became a prosecutor, and one day she walks in and says, "I want to be a judge." I said, "You want to be a judge? Okay, let's do it." And we got it done. And then my second daughter, Christine, went to law school, and she's up in Chicago. And then my son, John Robert, he's a lawyer in Hammond, and he's the criminal lawyer. And then he played at Spalding. He was on their basketball team and had a great career at Bishop Knoll and Spalding. And then my daughter, my last one, Jennifer, she went to Bishop Knoll. She holds the Bishop Knoll scoring record till this last year. She scored 1,500 points in a season at Knoll.
Wow.
And she was academically all state and all that stuff. And then she went to law school at John Marshall. And now she's a lawyer, and she's doing well in family law. And then my son got married, and his wife, Kristen, we sent to law school. We all did. We helped talk her into it. And now she's the Hammond City attorney. So
Yeah.
we're covered with lawyers, and we're trying to get more.
I think you
ahead.
may have a better track record for convincing people to go to law school than you do having, success in almost anything else. I know many people that you have talked into going to law school.
Well, I believe that lawyers, there's such a variety of specialties. They can go off into different areas. It's like you've got environmental law now that's big, and you've got immigration law that's even more bigger than I ever thought it could be, but it is. And everybody needs a good lawyer.
Yeah.
And good lawyers are hard to find, but we got a few good ones with us. And, in our family, we got 6 state champ rings, which is unprecedented. It's just how that could ever happen. I talked to people in there, if they got 1 state champ, they're happy. We got 6.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Robbie makes about half of them.
Robbie makes 3, and you, me, and Scotty make 1.
Yeah.
But
So,
getting
we
1
do.
is even a big accomplishment, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's very hard to even get 1. I know guys in my day played, and great players went on to college, never got a state champ ring in any sport. In baseball, they didn't have state champ in my day. And in basketball, they did, but not football. There was no state champ there either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they only certain sports, basketball, and they had a state champ. Matter of fact, I think basketball for a long time, till about the 70s, was the only state champ. There was a lot of mythical state champions.
Yeah, I mean, in 49 other states, it's just basketball. In Indiana, we
got all kinds of state
definitely,
champs, right?
yeah.
But it's good for the players, good for the kids, good for the fans. I mean,
Absolutely.
Indiana is probably one of the more famous states in the whole country over sports.
Yeah,
And
basketball at the very least.
Matter of fact, I got sworn into the Hall of Fame in 2003 for basketball. And my team from Michigan came to Newcastle, Indiana, to the Hall of Fame building, and we had a big banquet.
Oh,
And
wow, that's really cool.
I got up in front of the crowd. There was 1,000 people there, and I got to introduce 7 players on my Michigan team.
That all came to support you. Yeah.
And we went there, and they're saying, "Look, there's a picture of Oscar Robertson. He was 55 state champion, All-American, and then you had Ron Bonham, Cincinnati, and then you had all these different guys from Gary Roosevelt. You had a guy, Ron Heflin, who was a player coach, and you had a guy named Dick Barnett, who played with the New York Knicks for 10 years from Gary Roosevelt. They got beat in the final game in 55 by Oscar Robertson and his team.
Oh, wow.
Who was the best team in the Indiana ever till to Bonham, and then we're supposed to be the best, and we knocked them off. And then Turgovich and the Bridgman are all staters, and they national champs and everything else. And they're now touted as the best team ever, because they won every game by at least 15 points, beat everybody.
Oh, okay.
And we had some tough games, but we averaged over 90 points a game throughout the year. So we had a good team.
A casual 90 points, Grandpa. That you can
Yeah.
say that a little bit more with your chest. Like
Yeah.
that's a really cool. I mean,
Well, basketball has changed a lot now. It's more of a slowed it down, run the offense, set it up, and everything else. We were the running gun. We had a fast break team, and we ran 90 points 9 games in a row, over 90.
wow.
And then when the Turgovich guys came, they averaged they had 100 points in at least 10 games in 1971. So it's sports is, and people pay to come to sports. I turn on the Cubs game or the Yankees game and I see 30, 40,000 every game. You got to say, this is the American pastime. This is what people want to do. And everybody follows basketball too. NBA, who's better? Jordan, LeBron James, and now they got a couple guys out of Europe. Now you got an influx of a lot of European players coming in, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of sports are growing globally, which I think is super awesome. And I even have Sasha Stefanovic from my high school that's playing in Europe now. That was there when I went to high school.
He was a good player at Purdue. I followed him at Purdue. He did well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was. I was at the shot heard round the region game when he made like a 3-point at a buzzer beater for the sectional championship, which was really, as someone who's a big basketball fan, was a really awesome experience.
Yeah, he was a good athlete all the way around. But Crown Point's had good athletes in different sports. Andrean, their reputation in sports is so overwhelming now that you got a lot of people come out of Chicago and come from places. It's a Catholic school, and they can go there and still be eligible and play, even though they live in Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, they made it to the state championship 7 times across different sports in the last 2 years, which is absolutely unheard of.
Well, football, they got beat in the final game. Baseball, they got beat in the final game. The girls softball got beat in the final game. Who gets all the way to the final game of the state championship?
Yeah, I mean, and those indie buzzsaws are always tough. I mean, there's been many a times, my senior year of high school, we were 1 game away from the state championship and got beat by a big school.
I was there.
Not that Crown Point isn't a big school, but you know what I mean.
I was there. I was there when you won state, and I was there when you could have won it and had a bad break. So,
absolutely. Athletics
is a game of chance. It's a game of luck, and you have to have good coaching and all the way around support from your fans, and you got to have good teachers too. Teachers 100%. Help make people good athletes too.
Yeah, I thankfully had some amazing teachers during my time in elementary school, middle school, high school, even like Coach Harnew, who was my science teacher junior year of high school, who was also one of the softball coaches that really was important to me in high school and really supported my athletic career. And I think a lot of athletes have a similar experience. I know the Crown Point girls basketball team does a teacher appreciation night every year, which I think is really awesome. And they're also led by a really awesome coach. I played for Coach Seibert, as well as Coach Moore, my freshman year of high school, who are really awesome people and really great coaches. I mean, obviously they carried their team to a state championship as well. Definitely a really awesome culture, especially in women's athletics at Crown Point. And it's something that I really appreciated during my time there. And I think, like you said, fostering an environment where, Coach Seibert was a weightlifting and PE teacher too. So kind of getting that opportunity to have your coach push you outside of just being at practice was really awesome too. Something that I definitely appreciated as an athlete.
My coach never played a game of basketball in his life. He was a manager.
Oh, really?
He was a manager and coming out of Terre Haute, and he was manager for a great coach named Glenn Curtis. He had coached at different schools, and back in those days, you had Johnny Wooden was coaching the high school ball at South Bend, and then you had a lot of good coaches. Marion Crowley was at Lafayette, and he knocked off all the region teams every year. But, the bottom line was they were all hard workers and all dedicated, and their life ambition was to win a state championship. And I got an offer at North Carolina State my senior year coming out of high school. And I went
For basketball?
for basketball. I
Yes.
flew there to North Carolina State, and they offered me a scholarship. And the coach there was Indiana high school coach that had gone on, and he had won 4 state championships. So we in Indiana, we went to his house, and there was 4 state championship trophies in his bedroom there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We went through it. His name was Everett Case. He was a famous North Carolina. He had won national championships, and he said, "Well, he said I saw your game against Muncie, and I couldn't believe you beat them because they were the best team I ever saw, and you guys beat them by 16 points. And during the game, you threw the ball behind your back. I came down on a fast break and threw the ball behind my back, and our guy caught it and laid it in. And everybody, the radio said that was the play of the tournament, and it actually was because no one in those days did that fancy stuff and everything else. And
Yeah.
my assistant coach there, Nick Steringgash, says, "What, is your girlfriend in the stands? Are you showing off or what?" And we just laughed at it. It was fun. You got to have some fun in school too. It can't be all hard work. You got to have the jokesters on your team and the guys that we had a guy named Sam Tillman in high school where we're going up to start the final game, and he comes up, and our coach, just like Hoosiers basketball, we did a prayer, and then he looked up and says, "Anybody got anything to say?" Here's a guy, Sam Tillman, never plays much, and he said, "Remember, you're playing Muncie, not their reputation."
Yeah.
And that stuck with us for the whole game. And the broad after the game said, "Sam was right. We played them, not their reputation, and we whipped them." So that was, it was fantastic stories and ideas and things that happen. And most athletes can go through a season and have stories to tell and things that happen and the motivation. Yeah. Our coach was.
We even have a Facebook user that's saying like it's really awesome how much you remember. And I think something that we always joke about in our family is that, they always say like it's the people and the experiences that you remember, not the scores. And I think for you're kind of the exception.
My wife always says you can't remember to bring home from the grocery store, but you can remember who won and what score they did in 1959 or 1962.
Absolutely.
And, if you lived it, you remember it.
Yes.
And I remember all the different things that happened in my lifetime as far as sports and what had on. And really, we were blessed to be able to, we didn't have a car till I was about 18, and we had to walk to the park if we wanted to play baseball. We walked to school, and we did and got to know. And in East Chicago, it was kind of a tri-racial type group there. We had Hispanics play sports, we had blacks play sports, and we had whites, and we all got along good. There was no problems East Chicago has got a great reputation in some things, but it's got a bad reputation in others. But I was born and raised there and didn't leave East Chicago till I was about 40. I lived there when I came back and everything else. And our biggest competitor was Bishop Knoll. And they always recruited Knoll, always said they recruited. Well, one year they played in 1955. They had Ron Lineski out of Cal City in Illinois. They had Mike Graney out of Chesterton. And they had a guy named Bratke, who was somewhere else from. And then they had someone in Illinois. Half their team was out of Illinois and different cities. They didn't even have people living in Hammond or
anywhere near
Yeah, and we always said, well, they had ringers. But even to this day, recruiting is a controversial thing. People recruit, and I know there's been some controversy with Crown Point, and you get guys on WJOB all the time that say, Andran, they should win, and they recruit all the good players. And that's just ridiculous because, number one, Robbie and Scotty went there because they felt they got a good education and they liked playing there because the competition and the following is fantastic.
Absolutely. The alumni base too. So many people in that Andrian family just really support the athletics.
Right. And I was impressed. I don't know how many games I've seen at Andrian, but it's been a lot of games.
Absolutely.
there. I was watching one last night in Chesterton. So, and we're looking forward to having a great season again. I'm going to be kind of disappointed, but you'll be playing travel ball with that team that you're with, so I'll be able to see you play too.
Yeah.
I
I appreciate the support, Grandpa.
I enjoy that. I enjoy watching you play.
And
I bet I've watched her in maybe 80 games or so or something, and I've seen her made maybe 2 errors in 80 games or something. And
that
last year
is high
she hit,
praise, Grandpa. Thank
she
you.
hit 500. She had 512 for the whole season.
Yeah, and conference play. Yeah.
Yeah, and she got conference player of the year. I couldn't be prouder. But now she's on to great things too. She's going to be a big time lawyer out of Lake County, and we'll be able to say, "Hey, call Maggie. She'll take care of your case. Don't worry about it." Right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Well,
I'm happy to be in retirement from
are you?
my athletic
You
career. Yeah,
you
I was
you, you
I'm
played
glad to
hard,
be.
and I never saw anybody work any harder to get good.
Thank you,
You know, they
Grandpa.
go to batting practice, they go to tutoring, they go to all kind of stuff, and they just keep going and going and going. And it really showed up in your life so far.
Yeah, it was worth it. I loved every minute of it.
No,
But
yeah, well, you had a great career. I did too. Matter of fact, when
absolutely.
I got out of Michigan, I went to and played with the Grand Rapids Tackers. There was a pro team in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We played in Detroit. We played every weekend throughout the whole winter. We'd get in the car, me and a guy named Nick Manis, who played with the
Okay.
Boston Celtics. He went to Northwestern. He was all Big Ten, and he was East Chicago, Washington's star in 1955. But guess what? They went to the sectional in Hammond and got beat in the first game.
Wow.
And he was All-American that year, and then he went to Northwestern, and then Nick went and played with the Boston Celtics in pro ball for years, and then came back and he played in the CBA, and he asked me if I wanted to play, and I went and played with him. I played from 1965 to 1970 with the Grand Rapids Tackers, 5 years. We won the championship, I think, four out of the
Wow.
5
Okay.
years. But we had guys in that they would get a 10-day contract with the NBA, and then they'd play up there with different teams, and then they'd come back down and play with us. We had a guy
Okay.
named from Utah, Bill McGill.
Okay.
We used to call him Bill the Hillman McGill. He was 7 foot tall, and he could shoot the ball. He could hook. He could do anything, but he couldn't play defense. So he'd be up there playing with them. Then they'd bring him back down. And Roosevelt High School had a guy named Tony Harris, who was a star about the time your mother was in school. And he went to the Celtics and he played, but he couldn't stick with them. But he was only about 6'2", but he could probably dunk the ball upside down. He could jump like.
Yeah, he had such good hops. Yeah.
And we had a guy on my Michigan team named Oliver Darden, who was all Detroit team and all Michigan team. And he ended up making all Big Ten, but not all Americans because we had 2. But he could pick a dollar bill off the top of the backboard.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story.
I've seen that. He was 6'7", and they put a dollar bill up there, and for the fans, he'd go up there and jump up and pick it off the top of the backboard. Everybody was in shock. They never thought he could do it, but he was 6'7", and he had a vertical leap like Michael Jordan.
Just for the showmanship, yeah.
Oh, unbelievable.
Sports is supposed to be a game, and it's supposed to be fun, and I think little moments like that are something that you appreciate for your whole life.
Sports, I found out a lot is entertainment. People come out to be entertained, and I remember.
I mean, you played against the Globetrotters, for God's sakes. So
I was picked on the United States All-Star team in 1964 to play the Harlem Globetrotters in Chicago Stadium. We went there, and I was there with a guy named Pete Gent, who was All-State in Michigan, and then a guy from Loyola, Jerry Harkness, played. And, of course, I got lucky and had a good game, and I got MVP in the game. They beat us 97-95, the Harlem Globetrotters. They had Meadowlark Lemon. They had all the fancy guys and everything else. And there's a guy there named Connie Hawkins who got banned from the NBA for fixing a game in Iowa. So he had to play with the Globetrotters because he was banned for 5 years. But after he left the Globetrotters, he went and became all NBA star. He was like 6'9", and he was a great player. Connie Hawkins. You
Wow.
could Google all these guys I'm talking about and see what they
Oh,
really have done.
I believe you. No doubt in my mind, Grandpa. You have a steel trap of a mind.
And the funny thing is, I got a call from Pete Gent. He was all Big Ten at Michigan State, and we got to be friends through basketball. And he calls me up right after the season, and he says, "Hey, I got a deal for us." I said, "What's that, Pete?" And he said, "I'm gonna try out for the Dallas Cowboys for football, and they want basketball guards who are quick enough to play defensive halfback." And I said,
Oh boy.
I said, "Pete, I can't do that. They'll kill me." And he said, "Well, come on, try it." I didn't try. Pete went and made the team, and Pete Gent became a NFL football star. And the irony was, I don't know if the older people here listening would remember, he wrote a book, North Dallas 40. That was his life story. And they did a movie. They did a movie on it where he was a defensive halfback, but he had to end up taking painkillers to play. Every game he'd have to take painkillers, and it ended up putting him in a wheelchair.
Wow.
So when he got out of football, he ended up in a wheelchair, but then he did that movie. Famous guy, and he was really a crazy story, but it shows you how much an athlete wants to perform. And athletes do like to perform. I was always real happy to go on that floor, and we got 15,000 in the gym, and they're all cheering for you, and people love to see you, know you. I remember when I used to walk through the courtyard in Michigan, people would stop and stare and point.
You were like a real celebrity, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, when we came back from the regional, we had 6,000 people at the Detroit airport greeting us because we had won the NCAA regional and we were going to Final Four. Wow. First time in the history of Michigan basketball they ever went to the Final Four. And of course,
what do you think was your favorite, arena or even just gym that you ever played in?
Well, really, I'd have to say we played in Yost Fieldhouse in Michigan, which was an older place.
Yeah.
And we played all our games there. And sometimes when it rained and snowed, they'd have to postpone the game and clean the floor because the roof had leaked and we couldn't play. Oh, but we had great crowds. And then when Cassie came and we won the Big Ten, he's Player of the Year, they built Chrysler Arena and they named it, and it's still got a picture of him on the wall there. The house that Cassie built.
Wow.
My wife and I, Barbara, when we went there and we went to a reunion and they were all there. And right on the big walls, a big picture, Cassie Russell. It says, the house that Cassie built. And now they're still there. That's their big gym, the Chrysler Arena, who at the time, Fritz Chrysler was the ex-football coach at Michigan, and he was our athletic director when I played. And he was a famous guy all over the country. And while I was at Michigan, I got to meet a guy named Crazy Legs Hirsch, which was all pro football player. And then I got to meet Gordie Howe, who came to our practice, who was Mr. Hockey, Detroit Red Wings. Wow. His hands were so big he could hide my hand in his hand. He was such a, and he's a great hockey player, tremendous. And then we had a guy named Crazy Legs Hirsch, and then I also got to meet a couple. What's his name? Dave DeBuscher, played for the White Sox. He was a pitcher and he was a major leaguer. And of course, great story. I decided when I was playing amateur baseball with the Salmon Henry Indians, and we won the state amateur. This was from the time I was like 27 to 35. We won the state championship amateur baseball in Battle Creek, Michigan, and Fort Wayne 5 times. State champ 5 times in baseball. And really we decided we need some baseball bats. So Jimmy Platus and Chris Platus, they were our coaches and players. And we had a lot of guys that played college ball. So I said, well, I might be able to get you some from Bill Freehan. He's the White Sox. He's the Detroit catcher. And they're playing the White Sox up at the Drake Hotel. They stay there. So they call him up. So I called him up and he's not there. And the guy answers the phone and he says, I said, I'm looking for Bill Freehan. And I want to get a couple bats from him or get a thing of bats. And he says, well, he ain't here. He's out to dinner with his folks. He said, but I'll give you some of my bats if you want to come up here and get them. I said, who is this? He said, L.K. Line. L.K. Line was as famous as Babe Ruth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm talking to L.K. Line, begging him for baseball bats. And he's,
And you had no idea.
I had no idea who he was. And I said, no, I'm not going to bother you, but I appreciate it. He said, well, come on, I'll give you an autographed bat and you could give it to your grandkids and that. I didn't go because I was embarrassed that I would bother a guy like L.K. Line. He was a major league all-star like 15 years.
Yeah, you were looking for your college teammate and you ended up with the
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I could see where that would be a bit of a jump scare.
Well, you meet a lot of people in your life that you don't like. I got to talk to Branch McCracken, IU's coach, and we were playing him, and he said I could never play Big Ten. So during the game, we're pulling ahead, and they had a great team at IU. They had Jimmy Rail, they had the Van Arsdale brothers. They're all pros, and they had McLaughlin, and they had Boyard from Fort Wayne who had won the state. I'm running by McCracken, and I look over at him and wave to him, making fun. And I'm out on the field, and we're whipping them at Michigan.
Yeah, as you should.
And the irony, he called timeout, and he went over to our coach Strack and said, "Tell Cantrell to quit harassing me, or I'm gonna try to get him kicked out of the game." So my coach calls me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just give him a little action." And I was kind of notorious for doing crazy things on the basketball court.
Yeah.
And I really did, because we're playing Manny Newsom, who was Gary Roosevelt's star. And we played them in the regional final in East Chicago for the regional championship. They beat us during the season on our floor 74-70. So we come back and I'm guarding him. He got 30-some points in our first game. In the second game, he's averaging over 30 for the whole year in the state of Indiana.
Wow. Okay.
I guard him, and we beat him at the buzzer 60-58. And I held him to 15 points. And our coach said publicly, Cantrell's defense wins tournament. It had a great run. But then when I went,
cutting somebody's average in half is unheard of.
Oh yeah, well, he went to Western Michigan. He became a famous. This is Manny Newsom from Gary. He became. And I was on WLTH the other day, and they did an hour show on me talking about basketball like this. And they asked me, what do you think of Newsom? I said, Newsom was a great player till I guarded him. Then he was just an average player. And that was a true story. But the irony of the story I want to tell is that I guarded in the first two plays of the game. And one of the plays, I jumped up and blocked his shot. Unheard of anybody blocking a jump shooter shot. So they call timeout. I follow him into their huddle. So at their huddle, they got their five guys and me, and over my huddle, I'm standing there, and their coach looks at me and says, What are you doing in here? I said, I'm guarding Newsom.
Yeah, you weren't giving up.
And they all went crazy. Awesome. They were wild. But when they took me out of the game in 37 at halftime, he had 4 points. And the game before that against Loyola, he got 51. And the game before that one at Michigan State and Loyola, he got 50. And he's got 4 points, 1 basket and 2 free throws. And they carried me off the floor. They carried me off with the fans cheering. In the school yearbook there in New Michigan, they got a picture of that, me being, and the whole crowd, 15,000 standing.
That's iconic.
Well, this guy was famous. Newsom was famous, but I could guard. I only got to play college ball and Big Ten and everything else because I was very good.
Yeah, you're a defensive player.
Because at 5'10", I'm small. Matter of fact, when you look, one guy's 6'7", another guy's 6'8", and Kazi's 6'6", and they're all standing a head and a half taller than me. But I ran the show. Yeah. Just like most players, they want to be leaders. You are a leader on your team, and Scotty's a leader, God knows, on his football team and that. And Robbie, everyone, when the heat was on, they went to Robbie. And my daughter, Jennifer, led Bishop Knoll to all kind of victories. And my son, John, they all played well. They all did good.
I think that's something that sets athletes apart. And I think that it's very easily lost today because sports are becoming so individual especially growing up because of the college recruiting process that's happening right now.
Well, we had a
Um,
feeder system in East Chicago. We prided ourselves. I started out playing fifth grade basketball at the
yeah,
elementary. Then I played sixth grade. Then I was on the seventh grade team. And every summer, our coach would buy 500 basketballs with his funds. And everybody that wanted a ball could come to the gym the first day of summer school and get a free basketball, just as long as you gave your name, who you were, and where you're going to play. What alley were you playing in?
yeah.
And we
Oh,
had
that's
alley
awesome.
ball everywhere. I had my roof of my garage had a basketball, and we played out there till it got dark. And then I begged my dad and them to put lights out on my court. And I remember Robbie Scotty's father, Sean, who was very handy, built a basket half court in his backyard.
Yeah, we played on that basketball court forever.
And you
Maybe
had a
for
pitching.
hours.
You remember I got in the batting cage and you were
Yeah.
there, and I'm trying to hit the ball, and they're throwing me off a machine, and a lot of fun there. But
Yeah, we've
I
played
give
a
your
lot of
father and mother a lot of credit. They raised three great kids, and they did a heck of a job. And anything you guys needed, they got. And
Yeah.
it showed up academically and athletically and friendship wise. And
yeah, it's very true.
I'm
Very
very
thankful for my parents
I'm
and
very proud
how
to
much
say
they've supported us.
and I'm very proud to say I'm part of the Ballentine clan. A lot of people
Absolutely.
call me Mr. Ballentine. When I go to the game, someone will come up to me and say, "Hey, Mr. Ballentine, how you doing?" And I say,
It's
"Yeah,
okay. I go to the government center and they call me Miss Cantrell if it makes you
oh
feel
yeah,
better.
oh yeah, yeah." Well, we're both. I had a guy I worked for named Pete Rosinski.
Yeah.
He was the AD, and he was a famous football coach. He was state champ, and he was everything, and he was a legend. I started working for him, and then your father was dating my daughter, and he came up to me, and he was related to your father.
Yes, yes, my
He
dad's
says,
Uncle Pete.
and this is a true story, and he said to me straight up, he said, "Those are two great families going to get together. They're going to have great athletes as grandkids." I swear to goodness. And I
Yeah,
said, "Pete,
you're right.
I think you're on target. I think you're on target." He was a mentor to me. He helped me get through quite a few things, and so many people you meet in life that you want to pattern yourself after and be as good as they were. And I had a lot of guys that I thought I wanted to be as good as, guys that
Yeah.
played pro ball and baseball players, and just like Al Kaline, I was too embarrassed to go get a bat, which was unbelievable. But I appreciate your asking me to come on the show, and
Absolutely. I
I
was just
really
about to
think,
say we're about out of time. So
yeah,
thank you for Grandpa for coming.
and if you need anybody, I can get Pete Turkovich here now, and he's
I know, Grandpa.
UCLA's
Thank you.
finest. UCLA's finest. Did great, and I want to say hi to all the people that are treated us in Lake County so well.
Yes, and I would like to say thank you, Grandpa, you are a 1960 Indiana high school basketball state champion, as well as a Hoosier State Basketball Hall of Famer, a history-making star for the Michigan University Wolverines, and a principal athletic director for East Chicago schools. We
Athletic
are very
director for
thankful in the
25
region
years,
for
yeah.
all that you have contributed.
And I helped Ituan Moore when he went to Purdue, because I brought in a guy named Angel Garcia from the Puerto Rico that was instrumental in winning the state champ in East Chicago in 2003.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a lot of good fun then. And I could tell stories on and on and on. I could
Yeah,
talk
I know
another
you
5
could.
hours. Got a lot of stories. They all come back to me now as time goes on. But
Yeah, you're a great storyteller, and I am very thankful, Grandpa.
well, my wife says I need a filter, and then she says Maggie is going to be your filter. I said, "Good job, way to go,
I
Maggie."
try my best. All right, Grandpa, I'm
Thank you.
going to remove you now. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching this week, the special edition of the Monsters of the Madhouse episode with your special host, myself, Maggie Ballentine. Thank you for everyone for watching, and you'll catch me in 2 weeks on my normal show, the Regions Rising Stars, with a guest to be announced. Thank you, everyone.